Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central TV. It's time for News Now. I am Judith, Atibi. The top stories at this hour. DSS denies any operation at Labour headquarters. Chidima Adesina withdraws from Miss South Africa 2024 pageant. Cabinet endorses one person, one vote law in Somalia. Details shortly. And news now begins in Nigeria, where 7 people were reportedly injured after the fire incident at the Mobil filling station at Awolowo Way, Ikeja, Lagos State. As of the time of filing this report, security operatives have already arrived at the venue to divert both humans and vehicles away from the axis. The fire service operatives who arrived at the scene were able to put out the fire. Earlier, an eyewitness, Omojola Timilade, gave her an account of the incident while speaking with News Central's Bernard Akere.
I saw some guys, at least about 2. One was seated on the main road. The man has already got burned completely. So I don't know whether he survived it or not. And another one too. I think the fire caught the half of the body of that person. I don't know where about the 2 of them. That's what I saw.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, guys, I'll wrap this up with the information I got from the authorities. I was able to speak to one of the authorities from Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, who explained to me that, as I was saying earlier, it was in the process of some kind of gas exchange. There must have been some kind of leak, like the lady explained, and we know how flammable gas is and how combustible it can be. That must have been what led to the fire incident. Information reaching me has it that about 7 persons have been hospitalized, seriously injured, but they have been taken care of, and that one of the 7 persons have experienced about 70% burns all over the body, and that's the one I believe the lady was talking about. That person has been rushed to Bagada General Hospital, where he's the burns unit, where he or she, I haven't been able to verify the person's gender yet, he or she is receiving critical treatment.
And to another sad news coming in from Bayelsa State, where a devastating boat explosion has claimed the lives of at least 20 people. The wooden cargo boat, God Bless Dixon, was carrying over 64 passengers and crew when it caught fire and exploded in the Bayelsa waterways on Wednesday. According to ASP Musa Mohammed, police spokesman in Bayelsa, the incident occurred along the Ezutu-1 community in southern Ijo local government area. Rescue efforts by the Marine Police Unit are still ongoing as the full extent of the tragedy becomes clear. The boat was carrying farm produce from a rural settlement to Swali Market in Yenagua, where the disaster struck. Ogoniba Ikpeagasi, the chairman of the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria, Bayelsa chapter, also confirmed the incident on Thursday. Let's also tell you that the Department of State Service has refuted reports claiming that its officers had raided the headquarters of the Nigerian Labour Congress in Abuja. The denial comes following allegations by NLC that the service had sent armed men to its office and that they had carted away with some documents. According to the union, the operatives stormed the Labour House around 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday. The NLC said it was not immediately able to ascertain all the things taken away from its officers. However, in a response on Thursday, the spokesperson for the service, Peter Afunaya, said its personnel were not responsible for the ransacking of the Labour Union's office. In the meantime, the country director of Amnesty International, Issa Sanusi, has condemned the alleged invasion of the headquarters of the Nigerian Labour Congress in Abuja on Wednesday. He disclosed this in a statement on Thursday. Now, the raid, which took place on Wednesday night, was called a sinister and calculated attack with the intention of frightening the labor organization. According to the statement, security personnel during the raid ransacked the NLC bookshop, confiscating materials and claiming they were used to incite and organize a recent protest. Amnesty International emphasized that Nigeria must respect and protect the rights of trade unions under international human rights. Away from that, the Kaduna State Security Council has relaxed the 24-hour curfew earlier imposed on Kaduna and Zaria towns and environs. According to a statement released by the Commissioner, Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs, Kaduna State Samuel Aruwan, the curfew will now be in effect from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. This implies that citizens may move freely and carry out their legislative activities between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and will revert to the curfew from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. The Kaduna State Security Council reiterates it will be decisive in confronting actions which may lead to a breakdown of law and order during periods of movement as well as restriction. And now to join us to give us more update is Emmanuel Baguru, our correspondent live in Kaduna State. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us. It's now past 6 p.m. already when the curfew is supposed to begin till tomorrow 8 a.m. Are the soldiers back to the streets to enforce the curfew just like they have been doing since the past day?
Yes, they are already out. They are already mobilizing. Right now I'm standing at Mobil Stadium roundabout, the main entrance to the city center. And it's actually a rush hour here. People who are traveling outside the state have to, cross the city center before they get caught by the rage of the military officers and police officers who are enforcing the curfew. The curfew is officially on until 8 a.m. tomorrow. So if you are outside right now, you are wrong. So that is what the law says currently in Kaduna State. And that explains why you see all vehicles moving like this way on a high speed so that they'll be able to catch up with time and don't get embarrassed or arrested for breaking the curfew protocols. Yeah.
And I want to ask about residents. Are they worried about the restriction of movements? I mean, Kaduna itself is a very busy town with Kasua, the main market, right in the city center. There's also all of the senatorial business, the state house and where all the government offices are. It's a mixed bag of both private and the public sector, and it's very, very of a busy town. So by 6 p.m., I can only imagine that residents must be worried of the restriction when it comes to movement.
Yes. They are very, very worried for the fact that the situation is actually controllable, it's preventable. That's the most aspect which they are worried about, because they feel that their children, their youths are responsible for this, because they mentioned it, that if not that some people allegedly hijacked the protest, they would have been enjoying their businesses and going about their normal life. But unfortunately, this has happened. So they are actually worried, they are very worried, even though they heave a sigh of relief early in the morning when the news broke out that the curfew is relaxed. But of course, the restriction of movement will still be an issue that they'll be worried about, because they lost a lot of money, a lot of business opportunities. Some of them couldn't travel for those 2 days. And they thought that the relaxation of curfew will actually make them recover. So since they are not being able to recover, which is, of course, it's a gradual process, they have a reason to get worried, according to what they said.
Yeah. Emmanuel, I'm looking behind you, right? It looks like movement is still ongoing. The car is moving. I can see people still walking around. And by my time here, it's just 10 minutes past 6 p.m. What's going on?
It's just a rush hour. This is Abuja Stadium roundabout. It's like the entrance to the city center. Most people went out of the city for business and probably came back late, and that's why it's in this rush. If I have stood somewhere around Sabo or probably at Leventis, around about Leventis underpass, former Leventis underpass, you probably see that the place is empty, because by now the place is mounted with police. But I stood here deliberately to show you the level of rush that people are rushing to go back to their houses. It's actually a rush hour, not that activities are going on. Yeah.
Right.
Is that you're going into the city or you're going out of it? Yeah.
Right. And just to be clear, if I can remember my time at Kaduna, that roundabout takes you to the market. It also takes you to Barnawa, where you have Sabo, and it also takes you to Constitution Road that leads to where you have the government houses, correct?
Sure. You're correct. Yeah. You're very correct. It goes straight to Kao, then you take left and divert to the water and get to the government house. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Well, Emmanuel, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll get back to you in another hour to see the update on that rush hour. But thank you again. Emmanuel Bagudu there at Kaduna, just to follow up on the curfew imposed by the Security Council for Kaduna State. We switch gears now and we head now to Rivers State, where we understand that protesters seem to not have commenced day 8 of the ongoing nationwide peaceful protest against bad governance and hunger in Nigeria due to invasion of the protests on day 7 in Port Harcourt. Now, if you recall that the protesters were invaded with anti-protesters on day 7 that led to fracas between both factions in the state. The anti-protesters can be seen stationed at the Federal Secretariat along Aba Road, Port Harcourt, on Thursday morning as police takes over the Pleasure Park along same route where the protesters always converge to begin their protest. And to further discuss this, we're now being joined by our correspondent, Austin Azu, who's currently on standby in Port Harcourt. Austin, thank you so much for coming on. And my first question has to be, what's the latest as per the meeting with the protesters and the CP from our last conversation? The outcome of the meeting.
First and foremost, the outcome of the meeting has not been related back to journalists, so we are hoping to get details of that meeting. But from what we can confirm is that the anti-protesters that stationed themselves earlier on at the Federal Secretariat has been dispatched. So, of course, the day has gone very far. So even the security personnel has all left the place at the moment. You can see the free flow of vehicular movement in and out of the state capital. So obviously, protest seems not to have held today here in Rivers State compared to the previous days. From the 1 to the 7, we had protesters on this particular route, and they all came out in their solidarity. So obviously, due to what's played out yesterday on the 7th, so we didn't have any protesters on the road, and that actually gave a concern to the organizers of the protest, and they went further to have a one-on-one engagement with the CP. So that engagement is what we are looking forward to see the turnout, what likely turn out to be, if they are going to continue deny or they will suspend the protest, just like some other people have done in their various states and their various areas.
All right. Well, Austin, many thanks. Tomorrow will be day 9. Let's see if they will be out this time, and hopefully we can hear more details regarding the meeting with the CP and the protesters. But again, Austin, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. And back to curfews, and this time the Plateau State government has further relaxed their own curfew effective Thursday, August 8, 2024. Now, residents are now permitted to move freely to their lawful activities from 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily until further notice. Now, the state governor, Barrister Caleb Manasseh Mufwang, in consultation with security agencies, has authorized this relaxation. He assured the public that the government would continue to make decisions in the best interest of the people. The governor commended the public for their peaceful conduct during the curfew and appealed for continued cooperation with security agencies to ensure the safety and security of the state. And now for more update on this is News Central's correspondent Chizoba Anyowe. Chizoba, many thanks for coming on. Curfew, free movement, 12 noon to 6 p.m. How much can one do in just 6 hours in a day?
Good evening, Judith. Well, your guess is as good as mine, but unfortunately, that's what the residents of Jos, in particular, between Jos and Bukum Metropolis, have to deal with at this time. The protest is just like 7 days ago, last week Thursday, when it started, peacefully actually, until it got to the fourth day, when later in the evening of that same day, some hoodlums, hijacked the protest and took it as an opportunity to loot shops, restaurants and all those, and try to foment trouble. And so for the interest of safety and peace in the state, the governor had to impose this curfew, the 24-hour curfew actually, until after the third day, when nerves would have come to with advice and consultation from security agencies in the state. They were able to relax the curfew to now give residents some time to go out, do some shopping, restock and other things because no one saw it coming actually. That curfew was imposed around 11 p.m. of that Sunday. So no one saw it coming, no one prepared for it. So the relaxation came in yesterday. And then by today, again, further relaxed, come down to 12 p.m. to last till 6 p.m. That is 6 hours now, where people, you have to work within the 6 hours to do some shopping, to go to attend your businesses and all those. And so if you can see behind me now, the road is virtually empty again, unlike what we had like 6 hours ago, where people were going about their local businesses to make ends meet.
Right.
But now what we have is just a few people still going back home and then security operatives getting back to the checkpoint.
Chizoba, I have to ask, with Kaduna State and the curfew, what we saw was a heavy presence of military officers on ground to ensure that the curfew was imposed. Is it the same case in Jos Plateau State as well? Is there any heavy presence of any type of security personnel on ground?
Sure, there is. In fact, everywhere you are, it's just like you cannot see the surrounding where I am now. Just a few meters away is the state police headquarters. And because of that, we have heavy security personnel around here in front of me right now. And then around, I'm sure you would have seen one or two of them passing. We have also the headquarters of Operation Safe Haven, just like 2-3 kilometers away from here. And then moving further, you just keep seeing checkpoints, like after 1-2 kilometers away from one, to ensure that there's no breakdown of law and order from anybody and from any person. So yes, there is heavy security on ground.
And the people, how are they taking this 6 hour to do all the activity and rush back home and be behind closed doors? How are they taking this curfew?
Okay, well, I spoke with a few of them while the curfew was relaxed, and they were not happy actually about it. But in the interest of their own safety, peace in the state, everyone has to abide by the law, And so all they have to do is work within the 6 hours and pray. That's actually what they said. Unfortunately, they can't be here because it's past 6 o'clock. They can't be here to say that by themselves. But what they are asking is that as long as the security agencies have assured some greater amount of peace in the state, the governor should look into it and see if the curfew would be further relaxed or even lifted entirely so that people will have their normal free movement again.
All right. Well, Chizoba, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. Chizoba Nyowe, she's our correspondent live in Jos Plateau State, giving us update on the curfew imposed on the state. Once again, Chizoba, many thanks. We'll take a short break at this point on News Now. When we come back, there's more news. Stay with us. The Nigerian government recently announced that it has identified certain Nigerian citizens living abroad who have been supporting nationwide protests under the hashtag #EndBadGovernance. According to official statements, the individuals in question have been placed under increased surveillance and had their Nigerian bank accounts frozen. Activist Omoyele Sowore confirmed to News Central that the bank account of Take It Back Movement, one of the organizations backing calls for #EndBadGovernance, has been blocked. Adebola Adedugba has more.
Some view these as a justified security measure to prevent potentially destabilizing events.
Some of these sponsors, some of these people who are actually in diaspora, we have a number of them who are actually instigating this mayhem that we're seeing right now. What we've done is we've had them on our watch list and they've been watch listed. We have them on our radars and we're making sure that any attempt they make to come into the country will notify the necessary authority. And we're working closely, of course, with the NIA and DSS, of course, and the NSA's office.
While others see it as a thinly veiled attempt to silence dissenting voices.
The UBA accounts of Take It Back were blocked by the government through the UBA, and they have not reopened it. So I would imagine that that's what they're referring to, but that's a waste of time. The diasporans don't need anybody putting them on a watch list. They need to be given the right to vote, considering that they sent over $50 billion to Nigeria every year. And we have no any other option than to let them vote and let them be part of the conversation that goes on.
The government maintains this action is necessary to prevent foreign-funded protests, but critics argue it represents a clear attempt to stifle free expression and intimidate those who choose to voice opposition to perceived governmental shortcomings.
I do not see any legal justification for placing protesters or supporters of the protesters on any watch list. Protest, as I know, is a fundamental right. Placing them on a watch list is just a demonstration of the fact that the government has now made protest a crime. And this is despite the fact that Section 39, 40, and 41 of the Constitution guarantees the right to protest. So if I have a right to protest as a citizen of Nigeria, I also have a right to support protesters. So if government is placing those that supported the protesters on a watch list just because they are not in the country, despite the fact that they are a citizen of Nigeria, I think that it is just an abuse of power.
While the government's move has prompted diverse perspectives, there are also concerns these could undermine the principles of true democracy moving forward and restrict freedom of expression in Nigeria. In Lagos, Adebola Adeduba for News Central.
With a population of over 200 million people and a growing middle class, there is significant domestic demand for locally produced textiles and clothing. Hence the move by the Nigerian government to revamp the textile and cotton industry, noting that it could offer a range of economic benefits for the country, create millions of jobs, and earn much needed foreign exchange. News Center's Igbala Ni Omoni has the details.
The Nigerian textile industry once dominated West Africa, employing over 450,000 people and contributing significantly to the nation's GDP. However, decades of mismanagement, cheap imports, and a lack of investment have left the sector on the verge of collapse. Over the years, various efforts have been made by the government to revive the sector through tariff increases, import bans, and tax waivers. However, these have had little success due to infrastructural deficiencies, high energy costs, and lack of access to finance for manufacturers. The recent partnership between the federal government and the International Cotton Advisory Committee aims to address some of the key challenges facing the industry.
Because many of the textiles have closed down because of lack of raw materials, and there's a lot of smuggling. So once that one is done, the textiles will come back. We'll have about 70 textiles to come, because today now we have only 24 textile mills in Nigeria instead of 200 in the past.
The things that killed the textile industry is policy. Now we are revisiting policies to ensure that we restore it and launch Nigeria to the path of economic recovery. As for us in the customs, we are affirming and we are committing ourselves. We do all we can to make sure that we protect the textile industry.
If implemented effectively, these initiatives could help revitalize the textile industry and create growth opportunities. Manufacturers may be able to access the technical know-how needed to produce globally competitive products.
Part of the things that you see with our garment manufacturer is actually polyester, not cotton. And polyester happens to be cheaper than cotton. Cotton is a higher, grade to sew as against using polyester. And polyester, if our refineries were working, from what we've also been understood now, is actually supposed to be one of the byproducts coming out from the refinery. So really for us is to look at the entire value chain. There's so many things that we can trap back in this country.
Now is the time, and ICAC is ready to help with Nigeria to help you achieve your goals as a country, to help create quality jobs, to help generate foreign exchange, and reimagine the global cotton economy and the Nigeria cotton and textiles economy.
Stakeholders say an improved infrastructure and a more conducive business environment could attract new investment. These, in turn, could generate thousands of new jobs and economic activity, particularly in rural areas where textile firms tend to be located. However, much will depend on the government's ability to deliver on its promises and address the sector's fundamental issues. In Lagos, for News Central, Igbala Ni Omoni.
You're watching news now on News Central TV. Coming up, 2 missing, thousands displaced in Malmesbury Dam collapse. We'll bring you details after the break. Stay with us. And the news continues in the south of the continent, where Mozambique's cabinet has approved the country's tariff offer for the implementation of the agreement creating the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, and the national strategy for its implementation. Mozambique will have access to the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System and the AFCFTA Adjustment Fund. The fund's objectives are to limit any potential negative effects and support parties in executing the bank's agreement. As a participant in the guided Intra-African Trade Initiative for Goods, Mozambique will be able to take advantage of opportunities created by economic operators from countries where tariff bids have already been submitted and commercial transactions are being conducted. Still in Mozambique, it is hosting the 10th edition of the Mozambique Fakini International Tourism Fair with exhibitions by trade fair goers and debates on the business environment and investment opportunities. The event is being attended by at least 6,500 participants and more than 220 exhibitors. According to the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, the program includes at the start a debate on investment opportunities in the area of nature-based tourism and on the implementation of the decree that exempts certain countries from presenting an entry visa for tourists at Mozambique's borders. The fair promises to showcase exceptional Mozambique cultural tourism. And now to join us, we have News Center's Bongani Zaziba live in Mozambique. Bongani, thank you so much for coming on. I understand where we're at now is supposed to be the luncheon of the fair. Give us an update. What's going on?
Good evening, Judith, and quite a beautiful event here in Mozambique. The event bringing in more than 6,000 delegates coming together to just have that feel of Mozambique and also that experience where they are going to talk about the investment opportunities and what Mozambique has to bring African countries coming together and other delegates outside African countries just to come and have that feel of Africa. We know that Africa has a lot to offer when it comes to its tourism. But the question is, has Africa taken those opportunities around in Africa, between African countries? It's a question that is always asked, that are we using those opportunities that we have, the natural opportunities that we have as African countries? But with me is Kujo, a publisher who has been here at this event since morning, just to tell us what the ceremony was about in the morning and what the key points were, especially when that address, the morning address happened. Good evening, Kujo. Thank you for joining us. What were the key points during the morning ceremony?
For me, I think that was refreshing to hear the president talk about security, talk about visa facilitation, and talk about infrastructure, which then will be very good for tourism because, as he alluded to, the relaxation of visa for Mozambique for countries of their source market, but also described was very good to kickstart tourism. And then he also made the points that if you don't have the infrastructure, it will be difficult to run the tourism sector. One other very important point that he mentioned was how the country wants to diversify the tourism, not just the beaches, but its cultural offering and looking at the mines itself and the fact that they want to be ready to be able to take on the industry. And when you head, industry, players like the president of the municipality saying that they are prepared to be able to have enough stock of rooms for Maputo to host events. It was a good highlight of the event, and then finally moving towards having culture and tourism merged, so that you leverage on your endowment, your culture as a key pillar to promote the destination, Mozambique.
Thank you so much, Kujo. That was Kujo who was attending the ceremony in the morning. But behind me, you can see that the minister has already started addressing the gala dinner here, just to speak to delegates and also to the media here about the opportunities that are there in Mozambique. It's back to you in the studio now.
Well, many thanks, Bongani. We appreciate you for doing us with us. Bongani Ziziba, our correspondent live, and Mamuto, Mozambique, as the start of their tourism fair. Now we'll switch gears back to South Africa, where Chidima Adesina has withdrawn from the Miss South Africa 2024 pageant following a citizenship controversy. Now this comes after a preliminary investigation by the Home Affairs Department raised concerns about Adesina's citizenship. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schwabs announced yesterday that there are reasons to believe Adesina's mother may have committed fraud and identity theft in 2001. However, the minister emphasized that Adesina herself could not have been involved as she was just an infant at the time. Adesina was one of the 9 finalists set to compete for the Miss South Africa crown on August 10th, 2024. The chairperson of Africa Diaspora Forum, Husumusi Zimbanda, joins us on the news from South Africa to speak on this. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Let's get started very quickly. What was your initial reaction to the news that Chidima Adesina has withdrawn from the Miss South Africa 2024 pageant amid this citizenship controversy?
Good evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to this issue. Look, we knew that this it was sounding like it was something that was coming, and you know we are very appalled because this withdrawal is as a result of intimidation. It is as a result of duress or undue influence, and we feel that even the minister publicizing their investigation, went on to intimidate her, despite the fact that they say they got her consent. That was consent that was obtained through intimidation and duress as well. And we feel that, this has not been done lawfully. And it's therefore an unfortunate situation where a young lady during Africa Month has been victimized by authorities.
And I have to ask, you are the chairperson of the Africa Diaspora Forum. And so how does the forum view the handling of Chidima Adesina's case by the Home Affairs Department? You just spoke about this, but I'd like for you to elaborate on this more.
Well, look, we are very enraged by the manner in which the department has handled this thing, because you are looking at a government and, the minister who is acting, or responding, to social media, and who is responding to populist, attitudes and views about people that have got an extreme right position about, national identity, who think that, they can say anything about any other person without looking at the rights of, the people concerned. This is a young lady who has got the right to privacy, who has got the right, to be presumed innocent, who even at this particular stage is not supposed to be looked at as somebody that has committed any crime. And even if her mother were to be found to have committed a crime, she is not guilty of anything and is likely to retain her citizenship in the event that the statement which the minister has released, which says may have committed, identity theft. But again, they continue also to say the mother has got citizenship as well as the father. And those are two different issues that are very curious to us, because you may not be accused of identity theft and on the same note be referred to as someone who has got citizenship.
Right. I mean, just look at the Olympics. I'm going to use the Olympics as a case study for my next question. The Olympics, we have seen persons who are not of a certain country's heritage or culture, but they are of, when it comes to nationality, they are from there. I mean, you can take situations where we've seen runners, and even the fastest runner for Ireland as well. We've seen the current holder, and I think it's javelin or shot put now. She is of Nigerian heritage, but she has won the first ever record for America. And we've seen time and time again, Olympics is a fantastic example of where we see people who are not of this country's heritage or culture or their type of people, but they are competing on that world stage platform with their nationality and they're bold to fly the flag. And so I have to ask, what steps then do you believe should be taken to ensure that situations like this do not discourage other members of the African diaspora from participating in national events? I mean, just like a pageantry like Miss South Africa.
Well, look, we've got South Africa itself. We have had somebody like Tendai the Beast in rugby, who is of Zimbabwean origin. I mean, who actually got citizenship directly, but, was born in Zimbabwe, and, that continues. The problem that we have with the South African environment is the problem that we have referred to as Afrophobia, which is an issue that pertains to, Africans being always labeled. Once you're an African and you happen to become of foreign origin, you become victimized. We are looking at Tatiana Smith, who is actually at the Olympics right now, who still has got a heritage not coming from South Africa. So this problem needs to be addressed by sober-minded politicians who are not myopic in their view, who understands that Africans do not need to be victimized from where they come from. Because it appears that being South African means that you are either, of Sotho, Zulu, Tonga, or Venda origin. But if you're looking at the white South Africans, they are not subjected to the kind of scrutiny and ridiculing that we see taking place where Africans are involved. So this particular issue is an issue where the ministers themselves dealing with the issue should have followed the letter and the constitution of the country, which is very, very crucial when it looks at the human rights and the Bill of Rights, and how people are treated without any discrimination. Because this matter that has been brought to the fore now, it is being decided by the public views rather than the law that, governs this particular country.
Right. Well, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on, Vumuzi. We thank you so much for coming on and giving us your insight, for joining us today. Vumuzi is Zimbanda. He is the chairperson of Africa Diaspora Forum, and he joined us to talk about Chidinma Additional's withdrawal from the Miss South Africa pageant. Now, let's move on to more still in South Africa. 2 persons are said to be missing after a dam collapse has resulted in severe flooding to parts of Riverlands and Decemberg, just outside Malmesbury, South Africa. The flooding of houses in the area has led to the displacement of over 1,000 persons. This is said to have happened during the early hours of the morning, though no one dead or injuries has been recorded or reported. And now to the east of the continent, Somalia's cabinet on Thursday endorsed legislation to allow a one-person, one-vote system for elections for the first time in more than half a century in the troubled horn of Africa nation. Now, the law aims to replace a complex clan-based indirect voting system that has been in place since 1969 when the dictator Said Barre seized power. Somali government spokesperson Farhan Jamile at a press briefing said the national elections law would direct the country to hold one-person, one-vote elections. He adds that the legislation will give every Somali citizen the constitutional right to vote for a leader of their choice. However, it will have to go to Parliament for approval before it can be officially signed into law by President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed. You're watching news now on News Central TV. We go on a short break. Stay with us. Thousands of anti-racism protesters have marched through cities across the United Kingdom from August 7 to voice their opposition to recent far-right violence that has put police on high alert and led to hundreds of arrests. Right-wing activist groups posted lists of possible locations on social media, prompting the organization of protests outside migrant help centers in towns around the nation, including Birmingham and London. And for more on this, I'm being joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen. Afia, you are at the site of one of yesterday's anti-racism, anti-fascism marches. What is the feeling like? What is the feeling just being there?
Well, it's a lot calmer this evening than it was perhaps yesterday evening. Yesterday evening, this market behind me was completely boarded up because people were afraid of what potentially could happen later on in the evening. And just a bit further up the road is where one of the anti-racist, anti-fascist marches took place. Now, yesterday the weather was a bit different as well, a bit sunnier, and people thought perhaps that might encourage more people to come out. And it did encourage people to come out, but encouraged anti-racism and anti-fascism protesters to come out in their thousands. So today, it is a different atmosphere. Now, getting people to stop and talk about what they feel about what's happening, what they have experienced, is actually proving to be quite difficult because there's still a level of fear in this community, in communities like this around London that have a lot of people from different backgrounds. Although there was anti-racist and anti-fascist marches, there's still a lot of fear. The weekend is coming, the weather's going to be better, and historically we know that in London, when the weather heats up and there's already a bit of trouble, often riots can start. So yes, calmer than it was yesterday evening, but there is still an underlying sense of tension.
And I have to ask about the arrest. What's the latest on arrest and government reaction to the protests?
So what we are seeing is people being charged very, very quickly. So today we had 2 people who got combined sentences of about 5 years for various charges. Those charges ranged from racially aggravated assault to assault on a police officer. And people are being put through the system very quickly. So arrests occurred last week on Tuesday. 8-9 days later, you have people who have been charged and sent to prison for those offences. Now, Keir Starmer is having a third COBRA meeting today that will be reflecting on last night and looking ahead to the weekend and seeing what police need to have in place up and down the country, not just here in London, but what forces need to be deployed up and down the country to make sure that we can keep the peace and keep the order. But what we are seeing, number one, is policing being stretched. Police leave is cancelled. Up to 6,000 officers were mobilised yesterday. And number two, that when arrests are made, people are being processed through the system very, very quickly.
And I just have to ask, because we're pretty much out of time, we're pressed for time, but what can we expect from the UK over the weekend? We're going into the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Will there be more protests in terms of anti-racism, anti-fascism protests?
There will be over the weekend. There is a huge anti-racism and anti-fascist protest planned by Stand Up to Racism. They are taking place across the country. It's every town, every city. That's what it's been billed as. Taking place on Saturday all across the country. If the far right turn up to sort of agitate the anti-racist, anti-fascist protests, we don't know yet, but we do know that Stand Up to Racism organising those protests taking place across the UK, every town, every city on Saturday.
Well, Afia, many thanks for doing this. We'd also appreciate you for coming on. And that's Afia Egan, international correspondent, live from London. They're giving us update on the anti-racism protests, a response to the far-right riots that we saw from this week. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. DSS has denied any operation at Labour headquarters. Chidima Adechina has withdrawn from Miss South Africa 2024 pageant. We also told you that Cabinet endorses one person, one vote law in Somalia. Now remember that you can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. Now while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith, the TV.